All right. I'm assuming the hello is you can hear me. All right, let's try this again. Boom, boom. Unbound Yogini, let me know where you at. Drop your where you at in the chat. So don't know what you heard, so we're gonna try this again. Peace and love, kings, queens, and God. My name is Jarek. I'm the Floating Yogi, and this is brought to you by UE, Urban Yogic Wellness and Education, where we're restructuring how we see health and wellness in the community, bringing the power of healing and growth back to the hands of the individual. What we've been reading so far has been The Only Way Out Is In, and it's a phenomenal book breaking down Tantra, Yoga, and Ayurveda and how they're the three pillars that create the pyramid of health. And for the mind, for the body, and the spirit. And ironically, last week we were speaking on pyramids. So I'll just jump straight into that. The mind, body, and spirit is one of the pyramids that we were talking about last week, and another one to create other connecting aspects to this pyramid, because a pyramid is 4 triangles. Ooh. And a square. But we'll get to there. That's sacred geometry. That's a whole nother thing. We're not getting that deep today, but if you have any questions, drop a comment in the chat. Send a DM. So mind, body, breath, height, width, depth is another one. And then there is solid, liquid, gas. Those are three different transitional states, or states that we could be, 3 different states that we're in that correlate to our direction in life, where we're going, and how we want to get there. And then having those 3, just like height, width, depth, you get the inside and the outside, which create the only way in is out, you know. After you get the love, finally, I see what you say. Once you get that third inside, you create an external space. An easy way to explain this. With height and width, we have like 1 dimension. Once we put depth in there, we create a 3rd dimension, and then that space itself has a space inside of it, which is a different dimension from the space that's outside of it. So that's like the micro and the macro. Then we were talking about solid, liquid, gas, and those are different transitions that we go through consciously. Some of them are physical as well, but that transitions back into the elements that we were talking about. You can check one of the previous podcasts. I do have them labeled on YouTube, and they're on the IG, you know, vibe with me. Outside of that, another pyramid, a pyramid for consciousness that helps us, is Tristana. And I believe that's where we left off, where we were talking about we lightly touched on the bandhas, that inside world, that inner world, and how we see it. And so if you have any questions about that, I don't want to get too deep into that because it's rather situational, but there are some basics, but I ain't getting that deep into that. That's going to take too much time. Then there is, so that's the visualization of the inner world, those bandhas. And then there's the drishti. The drishti is like our sight. And I think that's where I'm going to start today, because that's an important one. We are very visual creatures. Very visual creatures. So, again, we're reading The Only Way Out Is In. If you have the book, we're on page 184. If you'd like to join and be a part of the Zoom room and part of the discussion, we could chop it up a little bit more. You can go to thefloatingyogi.com, and under book and experience, you'll see Floating Yogi Book Club. Floating Yoga Fundamentals Book Club. All right. Page 184, Drishti. Drishti, the 3rd point of the corner, or the first pyramid, is the Drishti. Scientists tell us about 80% of our energy goes out through our eyes. The remaining 20 is left for the other 4 sense organs: the ears, nose, tongue, skin. Drishti means to gaze. It's not meant to be an intense stare that I often see students doing. It simply means witnessing through the relaxed eyes, the windows of the soul. When practicing Ashtanga Yoga, there are 9 Drishti points that taught by Patabi Joyce. They are the thumb, the navel, the toes, the nose, the 3rd eye, the right, the left, up into the hand, all depending on which asana you're in. It helps with the wandering eye syndrome. Drishti trains the mind to observe by creating a double-arrowed passive awareness. So when it said it's the wandering eye syndrome. So for me, that is expressed when I'm like on the mat, or I have whatever, I'm on the mat or whatever, I'm on my mission going through life, but then I just start looking off of my mat. I start seeing what other people are doing. I start thinking about what I got to do. Maybe I'm just picking at my toenails or brushing stuff off the mat that doesn't really matter. That would be like the wandering eye syndrome. Instead of looking in other places and other things that are irrelevant, focus ourselves and then allow us to go deeper. That's where we get into those other 8 limbs of yoga. Like the concentration then becomes a point, a possibility. That the meditation becomes a possibility through that concentration, the dharana and the dhyana. All right. Drishti trains the mind to observe by creating a double-arrowed passive awareness, rooted within, looking out. And that's from the bandhas. Seeing how you're holding yourself up structurally, it helps you to see how other things are held up structurally. There's another book that we're not gonna read, at least all the way through. I might pick out some sections to go over, but that is Eastern Body, Western Mind. That's another great book. Really breaks down the chakra system and how it correlates to us psychologically and upbringing from childhood. It's got some great points. I already have some highlights, so we'll see how I jump off with that. So rooted within, looking out, internally focused, yet watching what happens outside as well. It is a form of pratyahara, the 5th limb. Pratyahara, that returning to source, directing your energy back home. Yet another device is to keep you present, thus keeping your energy from leaking out in many directions. This is how those yamas and niyamas are important, and how we get a little bit more of that spiritual stamina to overcome things that, are a struggle or could be really challenging. This is also why in deep meditation we close our eyes. It brings us 80% of our energy to that It brings the 80% of our energy that normally goes out in. As you've seen, the tools of inside out, Mula, Uddiyana, Bandha, the Ujjayi breathing, the Drishti, bring more aliveness to your practice because they create presence. When you step out of presence, you're absent. You lose touch with your core essence and expose yourself to many of the destructive behaviors that you might have avoided if you are awake and aware. So that's the point of the practice, to bring our awareness to whatever it is we do. So those moments when we're on the mat, but then we're like picking our toes and our mind's in a whole different spot, it's like, all right, at least be aware of these moments. So then the next time, all right, I was BSing myself. I was definitely bullshitting on my greatness. Hoodies available, thefloatingyogi.com. And then you're like, let me not repeat this cycle. Let me change and do something to better myself and those around me. Because when you start growing, once you start elevating yourself, the people around you see it. And they really, that energy is infectious in a great way. Okay. Then we have from the ground up. We were talking about different triangles, and we were briefly touching into sacred geometry. The second tetrahedron is called from the ground up. And this is another valuable tool for the wizard yogi. It's making contact with the surface of the earth, with the earth's energy, with whatever part of your body it's touching. Feet, hands, arms, abdomen, back, pelvis. You're creating a structural integrity by employing basic laws of mechanics. Ashtanga yoga begins with a standing pose called Samasthiti. And this is some of the fun stuff about getting deeper into these poses. If you want to know how to get deeper into the poses, we have to train our minds how to think, just like how we're retraining our bodies how to move. Okay, this is the first pose. This is the first asana pose in Surya Namaskara, those sun salutations that are the opening breath and movement section of the Ashtanga Method, and that are in like all my classes. There are numerous vinyasa sequences through all 6 series. The first asana, Samasthiti, brings our awareness to the core and the root of our feet, which is where we need to begin this practice, because we're focusing everything from the ground up. When our foundation is strong, everything on top of that is a little bit more sure-footed than if our foundation was weak and flimsy, clearly, right? House on what, brick or not a house on sand, something like that. There's some of them quotes, whatever. The word Samasthiti literally means balanced standing. How can we have balance in our stance without firm roots? Bring awareness to the feeling of your feet together, how they feel standing on the earth. Is your weight equally distributed between your left and right foot? Feel the trunk of your body sitting atop your legs and feet. From the ground up, build the pose upward with integrity and strength. From the ground up is energetically similar to the Mula Bandha, it is as if you have the bandhas in your feet. And you do. There are bandhas in your feet. He might touch on that in here. Padabandha and what is it? Pada and Hasta Bandha, hands. The best place to start for anyone, for example, in Samasthiti, is always to connect with the feet at first and then move the feeling in the legs. Make sure the Mula Bandha is engaged, which is the pelvic floor. There's a whole bunch of health and healing we can do with that, with the Mula Bandha. Tap into last week when we was reading on the Mula Bandha. Then move up the spine, creating length and space through those vertebrae. And what that's doing is actually creating that conscious space through those vertebrae. So when we have those compressions, we know how, I'm pinching, I'm relaxing, I'm not consciously aware, and creating space and length through my spine. I'm allowing gravity to press down. And that's what we want to avoid. Otherwise, we're going to be, time's going to get us, and fast. Okay. Then gravity pulls us upward, and gravity pulls us towards the earth, and we are constantly moving and flowing with the force, whether we are conscious of it or not. A sense of groundedness brings you more in alignment with this very powerful karmic law, gravity. If you don't obey the rules, you feel the heaviness of it. See, that's what daggone it, I didn't even know that was there. Levity, the energy we are cultivating in yoga, is the opposite of gravity. You find a weightlessness in a pose, and that's why we sit in cross-leg pose for meditation. It's the best way for you to sit and have your spine vertical for a long period of time. It creates a feeling of being rooted, yet elongated. Samasthiti is the first pose and sets the tone for everything that follows. Once you feel that openness in Samasthiti, where the chest is, where the breath is in the body, and then you start moving, adding different movements to it and following the breath, seeing how it changes, seeing how the body follows, seeing how the mind goes with it. And those are those pyramids that we were talking about before and how they connect. It's the birth of your practice that day, as Savasana or corpse pose is the death of your practice. The last pose where you lie down and completely let go. Just as each breath is another form of birth and death. Inspire birth and expire birth. Savasana reminds us how precious each moment is. In Samasthiti, you experience the least amount of surface tension from gravity pushing down on your body. Similar to the plumb line, which in construction they use to measure something to be perfectly vertical. In the body, the plumb is the center line which goes right through the core of your body. You can also experience this sense of weightlessness when you do a handstand correctly. Connect with the energy of the earth as you place your hands upon it. Feel the abundance of energy coming from the earth, from your hands and through the arms, and continue to move upward throughout your feet. Handstand is the exact experience in Samasthiti, but in reverse. Now your hands have bandhas in them. There was something I wanted to add about that. Another way to find that sense of weightlessness, if I like to meditate sitting on a block. So when I'm sitting on the block, and I'll just get into a little zone where it feels like I know I'm not asleep, but I'm like rocking forward and I catch my head just. That's another sense of weightlessness, and we give into gravity on those points instead of staying balanced, staying in that center line. Again, we are on page 187 in The Only Way Out Is In. If you have the book, come on, join us. I'd like to set up the intention from the very start with accessing this connection between the body and the earth. I begin by feeling my energy radiating out in 6 directions, all emerging from my center, the Mula Bandha, that pelvic floor. First, from Mula Bandha down to the core of the earth, then from Mula Bandha up to the infinity of the sky. Third, from just below my navel forward and out into the horizon. Fourth, out my back from the navel, center into the horizon, and finally five and six from the navel to the right of the horizon and to the left. If you open yourself up to it, you can access a force that is always abundantly there. Then he has a cool Star Wars quote in there. Ha ha ha, may the force be with you, blah, blah, blah. But those different directions are really crucial. They come into play with the Samnavayu, which is one of the ways that energy flows through us, which is expansive and compressive. Outward and inward from those center points, from that Mula Bandha, and also from where we consciously choose to breathe. So if you're choosing to breathe more in the chest or more in the abdomen, maybe it's more towards the bandhas. It could be nasally. We could be doing breath work like we will on Thursday when you hop in on the midday meditations. Get their mind right. All right. Moving from the ground up creates a firm, solid foundation. In this principle, it's important to recognize each person working with a different bodily proportion. Some have long legs and arms, some short or long torsos with short legs and long torsos. I got the long arms. I got a wingspan out this joint. Wah! If I had feathers, I could probably fly. There are many variations on the theme. In recognizing this, you need to vary your stance accordingly, shortening or lengthening to give you a sense of groundedness. Feel if there is more weight going into one foot than the other, or when the hands are touching the ground in a down dog. Is there more weight in one hand or the other? And that's one of the things I mentioned, like when we're in down dog, we're usually there for 5 breaths. So pedal the feet, rock side to side, see where the weight's distributed into one hip, how that connects to the knee, how that goes into the toes. Maybe the heel isn't down and it's just the ball of the foot. But this is just bringing our awareness, our mind inward, and avoiding those outside distractions with, what am I looking at? What's she doing? What did he do? Gosh, how'd they do that? Who stinks and didn't shower last night? Next point. Feel if they this affects the central core, your spine, tremendously. Noticing like the weight that you're pressing into each hand, or that's pressing into the foot, into the pelvis. That's affecting how the pelvis is tilted, how the spine, how the skull is, and what twists and shifts happen. The source of most internal rotations and imbalances stem from not being in your roots. If you begin from the ground up, you can correct it. Otherwise, the imbalance is going to return, since you are not addressing the root cause. That's another issue that we have with allopathic medicine. We don't really address the root of the issue. We more so assess the symptoms, make things more manageable, as opposed to, no, this is the underlying issue where I am being unconscious in my lifestyle and in my life choices. So, another often misunderstood dilemma is with being able to jump back from a seated position, Dandasana into Chaturanga, push-up position. If when sitting on the floor with the legs stretched out, Dandasana, and your arms are fully extended, but you can't touch the floor, then it will be a very challenge to jump back because there's less clearance. So what he's talking about is like, if you got your arms beside you, boom, and then the hands are like, they don't touch the floor, it's going to be hard for you to make your arms longer or reach into this shoulder, this trapezius space, to be able to, and it's not even really the shoulder, it's moving the shoulder girdle up and down along the spine. We don't necessarily pay attention to how we hold ourselves with our jaw and how that's affecting how we're holding our spine. Same with the shoulder and the shoulder girdle, and how that's affecting how we're pinching in the spine, or the scapula and how we're pinching. But we go deeper in on that on Tuesday nights, and virtual sessions. I have private virtual sessions. Check them out there on the website. Boom. And in person here at UE, Urban Yogic Wellness and Education Center. All right. So then I can skip all of that because I just explained that and just gave you an example. Boom, 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 bow. All right. Every practitioner can move and change their position and The teacher plays a significant role by observing and supporting each student according to their individual needs. Even though everyone may be doing the same poses, they're not really. I say this all the time. Every body is different and every body is different. So that's the same concept here. They're doing the same pose, but they're not really doing the same pose because your body expresses things differently. Like everyone, like roots in a tree, the deeper the roots, the taller the tree can grow. If your feet are incorrectly placed, the whole pose is incorrect. It's your foundation. I don't necessarily agree with that because, again, every body is different and every body is different. But words create the reality in which we perceive. So I gotta say that. But I do get the point because, if your foundation is weak, like I mentioned before, it's all going to collapse. Any tall, natural, or unmade structure is built upon deep foundations or roots. After the feet, I look at the legs, so I'm building from the ground up, and have them adjust their pose. There. If you're not observing the foundation, it puts a lot of stress on your ankles, knees, wrists, elbows, and injury can follow. I have seen tremendous number of injuries caused by forcing vulnerable joints into uncompromising positions because people are unaware of their relationship to gravity and joint mobility. Pain is a signal in the body to stop. Now, I will also say this in conjunction with that. Pain is a signal for the body. It is a signal in the body to stop. However, we also have to calibrate our our level of what we call pain, because some of these are just messages in the body to not stop but adjust. Like, you can go forward, just do it in a different way. Maybe it's relax the toes because you're flexing your toes, which is tensing up the ankle, which is hurting your knee and hurting the foot, and you're like, oh, I feel it on the top of my foot. So these are other ways we can use the mind. Like I was saying before, I'm telling you that this don't be dropping gems. All right. A word on injuries. The first series in Ashtanga is one of the most amazing healing practices for correcting and healing a troubled body and mind. But if done incorrectly, can damage just as much or worse than any other sport or movement. The primary series in Ashtanga is called Yoga Chittas, which means yoga therapy. I call it yoga surgery since it goes in and heals the disorder without a knife. I have seen it over and over again heal and repair several problems and injuries that in the West, if you went to a medical doctor, they would tell you you need surgery. These are facts. I've had a couple private clients and they needed surgery on either their kidneys or spleen, and we were doing certain movements, changing that diet, and also working with a nutritionist. I'm not a nutritionist, but these things help to clean up the body, clean up the mind, clean up the diet, seeing how they were being inactive, seeing how they were holding themselves, like this said, incorrectly or imbalanced, and make those adjustments, and then they didn't have to have any surgery. My mom, she has COPD. It was stage 4. We started working with meditation and breathwork, and now it's regressed to stage 3. So, and she's 70. So it's in the practice. You just have to follow it and then tailor it to, who you are, and be honest with yourself. Honesty is key. You won't grow without honesty. Okay. There are times when the medical world is the only option, especially emergency medicine. For instance, if I break my arm, I'm not going to go to the Ayurvedic doctor. I've seen myself and others heal from traumas from cars, motorcycles, sports, procedures, or surgeries through this practice. In fact, I rehabilitated a torn ACL. I've rehabilitated my MCL on my right knee. That thing was wild. And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I've magically regrown cartilage in my MCL. No, that did not happen. I learned how to use the muscles that surround my knee differently so I don't feel that bone on bone. So I'm creating space, just like we were talking about before, throughout the vertebrae. Okay. And he's talking about from carelessly playing basketball is how he injured his knee. I got mine from UPS. I was jumping in and out the trucks. I got heavy packages. Tore the knee up. And this is actually what got me into wellness a little bit more. All right. He says first series. He said first series was his medicine along with Ayurvedic herbs and other healing techniques. Do it with wisdom and intelligence and reap the rewards. Do it with ignorance and overzealousness and reap the damage done. It is not the fault of the system or the method, but the overzealous teacher cranking people into positions and postures that they have no business doing. I've heard again and again in the Ashtanga community that a teacher has told someone their supposed injury was not an injury at all, but an opening. I say for most of this part is nonsense. All right, this is where I don't agree with him. Injuries that have been there for a very long time and you've worked around in learning what goes on in those areas of your body and how you can maneuver closer to where the actual injury is so far beneficial than not, because just ignoring it and keeping that stagnant energy, that without oxygen, something that what is going to be wet without oxygen, what happens? It's going to ferment, it's going to mold. That's going to happen inside your body. So we do want some of that type of movement. That's the whole point of the practice. So there are points where I don't necessarily agree with him, but he has a great system in line. On rare occasions is the setting happening, blah, 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 blah. This is the part I wanted to tap on. Your practice will reflect the way you live. I'm going to say it again. Your practice will reflect the way you live. One more time. Your practice will reflect the way you live. If you rush through your practice, this will be reflected in your life. Or if you're over serious or guilt trip yourself about not being able to do a pose or comparing yourself to others, most likely you do this in your life. Are you joyful, having fun, light and vibrant? Again, this reflects your life. I'm going to go back to the first one. Your practice will reflect the way you live. And back to where we are in the book. We must watch how we mechanically race through the series and just say, I practice today. Savor each breath and notice how your life will have the same quality. The old days of Ashtanga, I was getting the flow because that joint was hitting me home. I feel that in the utmost. He had another comment about that. Like, I can see what you do. Whatever you do on your mat what you do on your mat is a reflection of what you do in your life or something like that. But he said it in some suave, swanky way. It's in the book. It's recorded. We'll go back to it. Okay, the old days of Ashtanga Yoga. Now, once upon a time, back in the old days, the 70s or 80s, there was a total of 4 sequences called the primary, intermediate, advanced A, and advanced B. Intermediate is now known as secondary, blah, 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 blah. Switch. So there's now 6 series in Ashtanga. The first one is Yoga Chittas, which is yoga therapy. The second one is Nadi Shanonda, which is nervous system cleansing. The third one is Advanced A, which is strength building. And I'm in that one now. And when I tell you, that joker works on the sides of your body individually. And that has been impactful for balancing out my spine and nervous system. So, does he get into the... I don't think he gets into it. Ooh, okay. So, the therapy, the first one's the yoga therapy. That's Ashtanga. That's going to get the mind and body right and in alignment. And then there's the Nadi Shanonda, which is nervous system cleansing. And what that does is has a whole bunch of back bends and different types of movements to access the lower pelvic area or the shoulder girdle, the higher cervical spine, under the jaw area, behind the ears. And it helps to not balance out the sides per se in the form of left and right, but balance out the sides in the form of front and back. So Yoga Chittas, we do a whole bunch of forward folds. So we're activating the back and the back side of our body, the hamstrings, the upper back, the scapula, the head to fold. We're pulling. And Nadi Shanonda is back bend. So once we have the awareness of the back, then we take that same awareness of the back and flip it forward, bring it to the front. And then the third series, hit the right side, left side. They got like foot behind the head, weird, wild, fun stuff like that. So again, we can access those lower areas into the coccyx, into the lower pelvis. Okay, so now I'm gonna take a sip of water, but we're gonna talk about the Ashtanga method as it is now taught by Patabi Joyce. We talk about a little bit about that, and that's what I practice. No commercials. All right, so the Ashtanga method as taught by Patabi Joyce. It's important here to mention, if you're going to take on Ashtanga Yoga Vinyasa method, let's be consistent with the traditional method of the Mysore style. It's amazing, as taught by the late Patabi Joyce. Otherwise, we create a lot of confusion in the global brotherhood of the system. This keeps a coherent flow of wherever you choose to go, whether it's in Los Angeles, New York, Paris, Sydney, or some small town in the middle of nowhere. You can walk in knowing that the same method is being taught. That's impactful. Otherwise, you're not starting over with each teacher. You are, essentially, but at least they know at least y'all are using the same map. Right? Damn, that's a bar. I'm gonna have to edit this junk. Yes. Okay. The personality of the instructor can still shine through, but the sequencing and principles are not lost. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come to a class of mine and say, "Yeah, I know the series," and then proceed to do I don't know what. Facts. I am attempting to say here that to uphold this system, let's be consistent with the lineage. Of course, we can add our insights and experiences to the teaching, but let's not alter the foundation of the practice and still call it Ashtanga Yoga. It's been a lot of that. A whole lot of that. Okay. Plus, we need to be open to change with whatever he sees fit. After all, Patabi Joyce's Guruji, blah, 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 blah. This doesn't mean that we have to be walking, talking, living clones of this guy, but we can, as I said, be a unique expression of this living system without diluting its principles. I do like that part. Be your own unique expression of it without diluting the principles. You can still shine through. I practice it daily, and then people come to my class and they're like, oh my gosh, your class is so fun. It's like you're all over the place. Yeah, I have a solid ass grounding in Ashtanga, so I can be all over the place and still bring myself back, because that's where the sequence will take you. Over here, over there, flip you that way, turn you that way, and then be like, chaturanga real smooth. Boop, doop, doop, boop, boop, doop, boop. Let's go to work. All right, I digress. The beauty of this method is, after practicing, you begin to see the poses are only mirrors reflecting back to you what you need to look at inside yourself. Ooh, the beauty of this method is, after practicing, you begin to see the poses are only mirrors reflecting back to you what you need to look at inside yourself. I also saw, after years of practicing and mastering some of the advanced asana, it didn't make me any more spiritual than someone else. Facts. It only means I can do something with my body that any dancer, gymnast, martial artist can do, perhaps many times better than me. What's so special about wrapping your leg around your head? It took me a while to get this, but hey, better late than never. It's also been a very humbling act to practice the series and see where I am, and not only physically, but more important, mentally. Facts. It is humbling as hell, because I was practicing, what was it? It was G, it was measurable, it was Mike, and we was practicing, and we were doing third series, led third by Kino or something. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, no, you're feeling pretty good today. Not amazing, but good. You might be able to tackle this. And then we do the lead third. Halfway in, I'm like, my elbows was doing some funny stuff. My shoulders was wobbly. My neck was doing this when I'm trying to be in headstand. And then I looked over at Maddie Bell, and she was like, all effortless and whatnot. I was like, yo, oh, all right. That's what I need to be doing. Thank you. But again, mentally, that check-in. It was one more. There was one other thing I wanted to add as well. The other beauty of this method is this is like where I got unlocked the inner guru in you from. I love the practice because it wasn't a teacher telling me what to do. It's me coming to the mat and learning how I move and seeing how I move, and then being able to adjust it, and then feeling and seeing how that affects the rest of my day, and then the rest of my week, and then how those little things start to compile up, and then I just have more energy. Then I realize that I have less, that stress isn't a factor per se. Not to say that things don't try to piss me off or get to me, or life don't throw me curveballs, because most certainly it does, but it doesn't bog me down. I still have that levity, just like it talks about in the poses. Gravity presses us down, and we're in the practice to find that levity. Then the same thing comes and hits. Boom. I'm like, okay, I can find that levity through those spiritual press downs, those spiritual attacks. You don't have to be attacking, I have to be that aggressive, but you know where I'm going with it. All right, last section. Let me double check. Yeah. Okay. I feel like I've barely scratched the surface, and more is being revealed every day. This is exciting to me, and that gets me up in the morning knowing that there is always something new to uncover and explore. Facts. I heard my dear friend and brother David Williams, one of the first Westerners to practice Ashtanga back in the early 70s, say, before you've practiced, the theory is useless. After you've practiced, the theory is obvious. Facts. Facts on facts. Stacks of facts. Okay. Last one, gross to subtle. Oh no. Alright, hold on. Camera battery died. That wasn't supposed to happen. Pause. What up, IG? Who's still vibing with me? G. Jonathan. What up, though? Peace and love, Kings, Queens, and guys. Let me know how you enjoying the content. Switch out this battery. Boom, 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 boom. All right. And we're back. Yeah, I'm gonna get a team, don't worry. Then I won't have to do it all myself. Alright, and we are on page 193, gross to subtle, and the only way out is in. Again, my name is Jarek the Floating Yogi, and this is Monday Night Book Club. Let's grow. Gross to subtle. The third tetrahedron or tool of the mystic yogi is to move from gross to subtle and back again at will, from one perspective to the other. And that is super powerful, from being able to be the observer to be the one of action. Those are super powerful tools because they're different roles. And understanding those different roles and knowing how to switch in between them, just think as a team. If you're working with somebody, if you can go from offense to defense like that, how much more helpful or useful could you be in whatever situation, whatever game you're playing, whatever. It could be even life. It's a fucking game in a sense. Don't take that too serious. Okay. The third tetrahedron or tool of the mystic yogi is to move from gross to subtle and back again at will. It is based on things I've already mentioned. First, you begin with your body. You get in touch with the physical side of who you are. This includes noticing and feeling the position of your feet and legs, hands. As your breath, has your breath and what's happening inside yourself. That looks like it was a mistake. Let me read this again. This includes noticing and feeling the position of your feet, legs, band, and has your breath, okay, I thought I wasn't crazy. Okay, and has your breath, what has happened inside your breath, inside yourself? How is your spine feeling? What is the breath doing? Am I fully here? Now, stick with the physical sensations happening in the moment. I always tell students to get out of your head and get into your body. I want them to feel the sensory experience, the warmth, the tingling, the buzzing, some kind of physical sensation, not just spin ideas and images around in their head. It is an internal exploration and awareness, having little to do with your thoughts and feelings. If thoughts or feelings come, which they will without struggle, return to the experience of what's happening. Just watch it. Don't give it any energy, then come back to being present in your body using the inside out principle and the ground up. From the ground inside out principle to ground you in what's real now. What's real now. The subtle energy circuits existing beyond the 5 physical sense organs in yoga are called 7 chakras and 72,000 nadis. Another name for this is the vast network of ethereal channels is meridians in the Chinese medicine. The rishis of ancient India have stated the numerous texts that there are 72,000 nadis, channels or tubes in the human body, in the entire body. I have no idea how they came up with this number, but I imagine it has a point to make. There is a lot. There is some sacred geometry as to how they came up with those numbers. We might get into that one day, but currently I just do it in my privates. So yeah, check out for a virtual session. Tap in, floatingyogi.com. Sign up on booking experience. We got the virtual one or in-person orbits. The digestive channel is one of many tubes that exist in our body. The lymphatic and the circulatory system is another intricate set of tubes. The nervous system is yet another extensive set of nadis. The body has literally miles of wiring branching through its entirety, from the tips of the toes to the tops of the head. There are physical nadis that you can see and count and cut open on a cadaver, and they all have subtle channels, together numbers 72,000. We are basically a bunch of tubes running through every possible direction, distributing energy in one form or another. We have literally a tube within a tube within a tube. When you have mastered the physical, the more subtle things begin to emerge. Until this time, you are most likely making things up in your head. Once you connect it with your physical energy through the grounding tools of inside out and grounding up, the ethereal realms reveal themselves naturally. It's like this. If you go beyond the confines of your limited mind, the conscious presence of all that is makes itself available. Until you are rooted in presence, you will not have access to the extrasensory vision. You will be mechanically going through the poses, getting some physical benefits, but the key to enter the vast worlds within will be just beyond your reach. Making a 10-degree shift in your awareness will grant you access. If you are now able to feel all the subtle movements becoming real life experiences, you're fully there, alive and awake. Until this time where you were asleep and were relying on someone else's experience. Now you are having your own. It's perfectly all right to get guidance or direction, but when someone else colors your world, it will forever remain in your imagination. You will never fully grasp it. It will be similar to someone describing to you the wonderful taste of chocolate without ever tasting it for yourself. Better yet, what a spectacular sunset or rainbow looks like without ever seeing one. Not possible, but we continue to do this all the time with the spirit world. That is facts. We're gonna stop here. Let's see. Another bandha is the Jiva bandha, energy activator. Do we need to get into that? Everything moves in a vortex. Let's see. All right, I think we'll stop here and we hit the Mysore style. Ooh, I might have to do a special one on the not Mysore style. And then in about 2 weeks, I think we'll be getting into Tantra, the past and present views of sexuality, modern day, cultivating potential energy release for men, throwing away your wealth, semen retention or ejaculation, pineal gland and magnetism. That has a lot to do with the semen retention. That has a lot to do with ejaculation. Pineal gland in the third eye. That's another path that it travels. Ooh, the Shiva Shakti story. That's gonna be fun, cause y'all, breathing techniques for tantra practices. I might have to read that one off air. Anyway, that's the things to come. It'd be great to see you tomorrow virtually we'll be practicing Ashtanga, exactly what we were talking about, creating that foundation, and if it's already created, just building on it, finding ways to grow and expand. And then there is Thursday. Thursday is Midday Mind Right, where you take a moment, get your mind right. There's a whole bunch of things going on in the day. Just take 30 minutes. We'll have a discussion. We'll have some breath work, some meditation. We'll go back to our day, refreshed, ready to move forward. Saturday, we're going to take all the things that we've been working on, all these different concepts, and we're going to throw them into a flow. We're going to mix it up, boom, and flow it out. It's going to be lit. And then Sunday is here at UE Center. 420 Friendly Sift and Flow. You can find it on my website, thefloatingyogi.com. So check it out. It'd be great to vibe with you. Outside of that, again, I'd like to thank UE, Urban Yogic Wellness and Education, also Surreal Audio Solutions, No Commercials International, and we out here. Peace and love.